So good to have you in company. Welcome to another presentation of Morning Barbados. I'm Tisha Hines. I'll be here with you until 8 o'clock this morning. And boy, do we have a show planned for you today. Wherever you are, wherever you're watching, whether it's online or on CBC TV8, maybe you're watching via another service provider on channel 103, we welcome you to the Caribbean Broadcasting family and Broadcasting Corporation family, and we certainly hope that you can stick around for the entire program. So we are going to be sharing loads with you today, starting with talking to you about Caribbean Home Help. And they've been with us for quite some time. We are going to update you on what's been happening with them. They had an official media launch in the last few days, very successful media launch. It was very well attended, and we're going to update you on that. But we're also going to be sharing a number of the initiatives that they now have available to the public that you definitely will want to hear a whole lot more about. So that is coming up. Plus, in the segment, The Next Chapter, Dr. Mark Eccles, author, is going to be here to talk to us about his book called African Diasporan Relationships. And that's going to be very, very interesting as he describes dating and marriage between black people from different cultures. So very interesting discussion. We're going to talk about that book and share it with you. And I'm sure you want to look it up online so that you can be a part of the discussion. We continue today with our segment, The Eyes Have It, where we present you with a pair of eyes, and you get to guess if you think you can figure out who that person is. We'll give you clues, of course, and that is for a chance at a prize. Doc Talk is back today, and we're looking at women's health, but we're going to be talking to you about postmenopause, what you can expect. That is the source of much discussion these days, so we definitely want to get into that with Dr. John Barker, who is going to be talking about definitions, the importance, causes, what women can look forward to. So very rich and interesting discussion to come on that. So get your questions together. Remember, you can reach out to us at any time by emailing morningbarbados@cbc.bb, and that's morning without the G. So if you have any questions for the doctor, for example, or any of our experts, you can email throughout the show, and we most certainly will try to field those questions. Also with us today, we're talking HR as we have a packed program. Nicholas Roberts, who is the president of the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados, will be bringing along Dr. Rochelle Haynes, CEO of Crowd Potential Consulting and head of research of the association for the future of work. So very interesting discussion we'll have as we talk about things like unleashing organizational innovation with a skills-based approach. What does that mean? And how can you get your organization in line? How can you get yourself in line for this future work we are talking about that many organizations are preparing for? So that is what you can expect on today's presentation of Morning Barbados. Of course, we are going to culminate with Mr. Executive Interschool Business and Gentleman's Challenge with Mr. Winston Cumberbatch, founder and coordinator of the Mr. Executive Challenge, but also he's bringing along a few of the boys who will be participating. So that should be exciting. Now, we told you about Caribbean Home Help, and I was fortunate to be able to make it out to their launch, which happened just a few days ago. Quite a few people came out to see exactly what services they have to offer in the area of elderly care, and it went a little something like this.
Welcome here this morning to the Courtyard Marriott for what is certainly going to be an exciting launch, especially for the members of Caribbean Home Help. To give you a brief outline of Caribbean Home Help, they're a fully outfitted service in the in-home care of the elderly. The team members, they work assiduously to ensure that the clients' daily and long-term needs are taken care of, so that primary caregivers can continue to meet professional demands of the job. At this time, I would like to acknowledge both the Barbadian and the Trinidadian teams, because yes, this is a regional outfit. And now we meet Team Trinidad.
Welcome to Caribbean Home Health Trinidad. I am Candice. I am one of the registered nurses at this institution. I am in charge of health and safety and soon to be in charge of our palliative care system.
Welcome to Caribbean Home Health Trinidad. My name is Rochelle Phillip. I am the logistics manager. What is Caribbean Home Health Trinidad? Caribbean Home Health Trinidad is an all-around agency that provides services from caring for the elderly, babysitting, transportation, housekeeping, and maintenance in and around the home, just to name a few.
Sometimes the best people to hear from are the people who utilize the services. We are going to meet these two individuals now, Jason and Mia.
My name is Jason, and this is Mia, my girlfriend, and we are currently living in Bermuda. And we first came across Caribbean Home Health while doing some research looking for help for family at home.
And we are
All right, so that was a taste of what happened. Trust me, we're going to have to work on how we can share a bit more of it with you, but definitely very, very informative. So let me go ahead and welcome founder and CEO of Caribbean Home Health back to the Morning Barbados seats. Paul Marshall, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning, Tisha.
Good morning. You've brought along Dr. Michael Bellamy, who's a general practice physician. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, and thank you.
All right, coming out of that review of what happened at the launch, talk to me about what the aim really was in sharing now your services with the general public.
Yes. During our time, we've been getting a lot of feedback from clients regarding what they would like to see us do, which is to essentially help them have all the tools necessary to age gracefully. So we wanted to be able to share that, and by creating the in-home concierge service was basically kind of bolting on to what we already had established. So one of the key things we wanted to do was incorporate a couple new things that essentially will make people's lives safer. So health and safety monitoring. Because we found that with our dementia patients, there are some cases where they leave the stove on and it becomes a risk to them. So we wanted to be in a position to be able to detect that and be able to step in and basically either save lives or keep people from harm. In addition to that, we want to also kind of solve some of the issues that are publicly known of dementia patients wandering off, and we implemented our monitoring service. So that actually tracks the individual and allows us to be able to bring them home safely. So it's quite wide, the services that we offer, but we wanted to be able to highlight the key things that will make lives and keep people safe.
That's most important. I know that there are still some people who hear the term dementia, but they're not absolutely sure what it is. So Dr. Bellamy, can you share for us what it is, what it means to have dementia?
Okay, so dementia is an umbrella term which refers to a group of diseases which are characterized by a decline in cognitive function, including language, short-term memory, and reasoning abilities. The most common of which would be Alzheimer's disease, but there are other types including Lewy body and vascular dementia, as well as mixed dementia.
All right, and are we seeing a higher prevalence of dementia-related issues with older people in Barbados, or is it in step with what's been happening through the years?
I would say we definitely have an increase, and we have close to about 4,500 persons reported in Barbados to be living with dementia, but we believe this is grossly underrepresented as well, because not everybody's going to come forward and discuss it with their doctors what's going on because of the stigma attached to dementia right now.
Let's talk about that stigma.
Yes.
And this is where Caribbean Home Health really comes in, because they're offering this geo-tracking. So, you know, people often have to go away from home and they leave their elderly parents. Not that you want to do it, and sometimes you don't even recognize that there's the early onset of dementia. As I understand it, there might be lapses where, as you have the decline in cognitive function, you may have people being coherent and speaking to you normally, and then have lapses at certain points throughout the day. So if this happens, we've been seeing more and more in the news that, you know, some elderly person, as we would say in Bajan parlance, has walked away from home. And unfortunately, a few of the times they've not been found, or they were found dead. And I think that is the worst news that any child can have, because there's no closure if your parent walks away from home and you're never able to find them. So because now Caribbean Home Help is offering this opportunity for you to have this device to be able to figure out where your parent is or whomever is at any point in time throughout the day, it offers that comfort, that peace of mind that people will need. I'm sure you'd agree, Paul.
Yes, and it also provides independence for that individual in the early stages of dementia. That gives them and the family that peace of mind, as you indicated, to leave that individual at particular times of the day and know that you'll be able to find them. So it is a very important part of our suite of services that we will be included for dementia patients, and it doesn't have to be just dementia patients, but persons that you just want to make sure that you can keep a track of.
Dr. Bellamy, let's talk now about the challenges that we experience with people with dementia. And this umbrella term, I must tell you that for some reason, I thought dementia was a thing in and of itself. I mean, this even shows that we need to do a little more research on what's happening, because somehow people talk about dementia and Alzheimer's as though they're two completely different things. But what you've said this morning is dementia is kind of, you know, an overarching term to refer to a few conditions that older people can be experiencing. So, you know, that's a little different for me. But, you know, what are some of the challenges that people who are facing cognitive decline can experience?
Okay, so as we mentioned, language. So sometimes there are needs that the person would have that they can't really express to the relatives, which presents a lot of challenges for communication among the family members. Then you have, in terms of nutrition, sometimes they're not getting their adequate amount of daily calories or a varied diet and so on. So that's another challenge. And then, as Paul mentioned, wandering, not knowing where they are, not recognizing their neighborhood, not recognizing their relatives. So there are a number of things that persons are challenged with, and the family members have to try and educate themselves. And Caribbean Home Health is here to help you along with the process of that, because it can be very lonely when you're dealing with it in terms of having a relative who you love, and this person is now suddenly changing. And how can you really address these problems for them and help them along the way? So that's what we're aiming to help these persons with.
I'm really happy to hear that in this area, Caribbean Home Help, you've not only shown up and said, I am offering you help in a certain area of care, but you're offering a rounded package. So here we are with a doctor who is associated with Caribbean Home Help, who can share relevant information. And then, of course, Dr. Bellamy made reference to nutrition. So I know in terms of the services you offer, then, of course, you can help in those areas too.
Yes.
The correct nutrition. So you're getting customized service depending on the person, because I'm sure Dr. Bellamy will tell us as we move from person to person, it varies what they need based on the individual.
This is correct.
And I think that's what you bring to the table, and that's what makes all the difference.
Yes.
Yes?
Agreed. And also identifying this early, because we do dementia screening. Because once you can start to identify the issue, you can start creating solutions. And we believe that at this particular junction, with Barbados not really understanding the disease as it is, and those individuals feeling socially isolated, we need to be in a position to step up, learn, and be able to put certain things in place for people are going through a horror story.
I think aging gracefully, aging happily has a lot to do with quality of life.
Yes.
And
Very much so.
to enjoy a good quality of life, I think we need to be able to offer some help to our aging relatives who are experiencing this level of cognitive decline to the point where, you know, they're losing their memory or wandering or whatever. So what are some of the ways, Dr. Bellamy, that we can work to help our relatives with who might be experiencing dementia?
Okay, so Caribbean Home Help would offer a package in terms of at-home services, delivering meals, having menus and so on available, having nursing on call, having doctors on call and so on, so that we can help relatives through the process and help the relatives to deal with the person who's currently suffering from dementia. So we have a wide range of services, and we personalize everything. So,
and I think I recall from the press conference that you talked about even offering a smoke detection service.
Yes. So as it relates to, it's actually a monitoring service that if they detect smoke, they can actually have a conversation with the person to encourage them to turn the stove off. And if we are not satisfied, we can contact the authorities to actually go to the home to see if the person is okay, or in case of a fire, extinguish that fire.
Yeah, that's a wonderful initiative, especially in recent times. We've been hearing so much about fires,
yes.
and there have been instances, unfortunately, where the elderly have been involved. I want to delve a little deeper into this geo-tracking device. What form does it take? How does it work? Talk to us about the functionality.
So currently it's like a necklace, but it can be worn around the arm, and essentially it's working off the cellular network. And if that person leaves the household and we are looking for that individual, the network center who is monitoring will be able to pinpoint where that individual is. And again, this is all monitored. They can call the authorities and inform the person or just the family. We can set rules that are customized to make sure that we deliver the right service for that individual.
All right. You know, you can reach out to Caribbean Home Help at 629-4251. Their website is caribbeanhomehelp.com, or you can email csr@caribbeanhomehelp.com for more information. We, of course, will share that on screen with you so that you can get into it. And you need not jump all the way in, because I know when it comes to parents, when it comes to the people that you love, you want to make sure you're making good decisions for them. You want the right people to be there for them. So it could just be some exploratory questions, but you definitely should call. You definitely should reach out if you're experiencing challenges, or you feel like you need some help, or you just have some questions that you need answered. And the good people at Caribbean Home Help definitely will come on board to help you in whatever areas that you need. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, Dr. Bellamy, what advice would you give to, you know, any family members out there who are kind of apprehensive about reaching out? Because we know culture can be a great deterrent. Yes, so I mean, culturally, I feel like we still frown on people who have to, you know, get care for their parents. So the wonderful thing about Caribbean Home Help is they're getting in-home care. They're getting the care where they're most comfortable.
correct.
Yeah, so what advice would you have for them in terms of how they should approaching Caribbean Home Help?
Well, I would just advise everyone not to be at all trepidated or not to feel uncomfortable. We are here to help you in any personalized way that we can. We're very caring, we're very warm, and Paul has been through this already with his dad years ago, so he knows exactly the challenges, and he knows exactly how it can be. It can be scary, right? But we're here to, you know, really help you out, and really and truly just give us a call, and we're here to assist you through every step of the way. So nothing to be ashamed or scared of.
I think what you're doing, Paul, is It's not new in the world, but it's revolutionary here in Barbados. Being able to have that peace of mind, certainly with the geo-tracking, with the all-round, the 360 service, I like to call it. Just offering just about anything, and I love that you make the services customizable as well.
Yes.
So it's an individual service that you're tailoring for an individual's need so that they're comfortable in their home.
Yes.
True to the name, Caribbean Home Help. Thank you as always for coming in
Thank
and
you.
sharing with us. And we most certainly will continue to share with you what's happening with Caribbean Home Help. All you need to do is dial that number 629-4251, website caribbeanhomehelp.com. And I know we have some elderly viewers who are locked on to Morning Barbados as well. You might be recognizing that you might need a little help around the house as well. So it might not be that you have that major cognitive decline that we're talking about, or a child or relative is looking after you, and all of a sudden you can't get out to mow the lawn yourself. You need a little help with preparing meals. You need a little advice on apping up the nutrition. You might need someone to accompany you to the doctor or what have you. All of these are services that are offered by Caribbean Home Help. So the only thing left for you to do is give them a call. We're going to take a break and come on back here on Morning Barbados. Stay with us. It's time for the next chapter, where we introduce you to some wonderful books from not only here in Barbados but across the globe. Let's go right ahead and welcome Dr. Mark Eccles, who is here to tell us all about his book, African Diasporan Relationships. I've read the overview and I can't wait to get between the pages because it seems quite interesting. It's looking at relationships between Black people of different cultural backgrounds. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Eccles.
Good morning. Good morning, Tisha. Good morning, Barbados. I'm a huge fan of the show. I'm a huge fan of the country. I love Barbados and very happy to be here.
Well, good to have you with us. And let's delve straight into the pages. Talk to me about the book generally. I know I gave my own version of the overview, but I'm sure you'd agree I can't do it as well as you can. So go ahead and tell us all about this book, African Diasporan Relationships.
Okay, so the book is a celebration of these beautiful cultures, these beautiful couples. So what I sought to do with the book is I sought to look at African diasporan couples, couples that are coming from different countries and different cultures. So my purpose of the book was to explore what it's like to be a Black person that's dating or married to another Black person from a different country, and to both ask and answer every possible question someone may have about being in this type of relationship. So I sought to achieve that objective in a number of ways. One is I told my own personal story, being a Black American man that has been in these type of relationships for the past 25 years, dating African women, dating Caribbean women, ultimately culminating in the marriage to my beautiful Bajan wife. Then I'll look at the issue from an academic standpoint. So I discuss what the African diaspora is. I discuss what African diasporan relationships are. I discuss the prevalence of these relationships because I believe they're more common than many people believe. I talk about famous persons who are in African diasporan relationships, celebrities that come from these backgrounds, including Barbados' own Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. I talk about how to meet Black people from different cultures, if you're interested in that. I talk about what to expect in these relationships. I talk about the benefits of the relationships, the challenges of the relationships. I talk about pitfalls and things people may be apprehensive about being in this type of relationship. I address that. And finally, I interview other couples who are in these relationships. African Americans who are married to Africans, African Americans who are married to Caribbean who are married to Africans, African Americans married to Afro-Latino. I let them share in their own words their stories, the challenges that they have had, the benefits of being in these relationships, what they overcame, and how they ultimately were successful in the relationships. So again, I wanted to ask and answer every question that someone may possibly have about these relationships, which I find to be beautiful and in need of more discussion.
That's a lot to get through. I know that one part of a summary of the book also references the fact that these relationships are the least discussed relationship dynamics in the Black community. Qualify that for us.
Yes, because typically when you talk about relationships, particularly relationships among Black couples, you don't often hear about what it's like to be with a Black person from a different culture. So you hear maybe differences in education, maybe dating as a single parent, even interracial relationships. You hear about the struggles that maybe Black couples may experience, but you don't often hear discussions about, Black people who are in intercultural relationships. It's a unique dynamic, and one that I have not find it's discussed. And I've been researching these relationships for nearly 20 years now. So I don't see it get the focus that I believe it deserves. So that's what I want to do in this book. And I've even done the same in a Facebook group I created about this. It's the same name that's been around since 2009. I had a similar group in 2005. So I've really been involved in these discussions, doing the research for these relationships and talking about it for nearly 20 years now.
Because some of these topics or some of these areas are, as you mentioned, least discussed, were there any challenges to getting people to share their stories openly? I most certainly have found that even moving around in Barbados, people will talk to you until they see a camera, until they see a microphone, until they think I'm going to be featured in some way, and then they kind of say, I don't know about that, particularly about sharing their personal lives, which is completely opposite as you move to different cultural spheres.
That's an excellent question, and of course you are very right. It took me about 3 to 4 years to write the book. And the bulk of that time was just securing the interviews I wanted to do, because people are reluctant to share their stories, as you mentioned. So it did take me a while to secure the interviews I wanted for the book. And ultimately, what I had to do is to ensure the confidentiality of the people that were interviewed. I changed names, I changed locations to, make sure that they didn't have to worry that someone was going to identify them. I just wanted them to share their stories, for the readers and for others in these relationships to know that there are people who are successful. And the response to it, which kind of validates that approach, is a lot of people who are in these relationships, who are interested in these relationships, have read the book, and they have reported back to me that, number one, they've never read a book like this before, but also it pretty much validated their relationship. They felt special, and they felt that they belonged to something greater after reading the book and what's in it, and not only my story, but reading what other people had to say about being in this type of relationship.
This certainly sounds like a grand research initiative. And usually when we set out to do research, there are some findings that we expect and other findings that sometimes surprise us. So were there any surprises for you along the line?
There weren't a whole lot of surprises just because I've been doing the research for so long. But one thing I can say and share, and this is also kind of emphasizes my point about this being the least discussed relationship dynamic, particularly among Black people. It's very difficult to find information about Black people who are dating and married to other Black people from different cultures. A lot of the searches I've done, I see results for other type of relationships. Like, for instance, if I look for African American married to Caribbean, which is my own relationship, or African American married to African, I will see results for like interracial relationships, or results for other people married to African or Caribbean. So it's very difficult to get that specific dynamic, but also justify the reason for my doing this work and writing the book.
I can totally agree with you. And I know when you get married, people probably won't like to hear this, but you get married to the entire family, particularly if your partner is close to their family. And we as Caribbean people tend to be very much in each other's business. Whereas in North America and in other parts of the world, it's almost like, okay, you're grown, go off now on your own. So I know things like that really present challenges in relationships. So, what can we expect between the pages in terms of how it guides the thought processes on people who might be looking toward relationships, with the fact that how people date is now, squarely a major thing. So I think that too might lend to shaping who you meet, because people aren't necessarily meeting the way they did before. Certainly people are able now to go online and meet people from all across the globe. So that might present a totally different dynamic in terms of who we're able to reach out to initially and date. And I know in the book you also cover some of that in terms of people who might be scammed along the way, because we see a lot of that as well.
I absolutely do. I address, Arana, that you mentioned, pretty much everything that you just discussed. So I talk about, again, how to meet people, what to expect in these relationships. So one thing you just mentioned about Caribbean families, I actually see that as a benefit of these relationships. But I give practical advice. And one of the many advice I give is to learn as much as you can about your partner. Communicate. So a lot of these cultural differences you should be discussing. And one of the keys to know whether or not someone is for you is that they show interest in your country and your culture. That's one thing I could say with myself and my wife. I've been to Barbados. I love Bajan culture, Bajan food, Bajan programs. Again, I regularly follow this show. I think that's a natural aspect of being in this type of relationship, that you will show interest in your partner's culture. She still has family on the island, so we have been there My mother-in-law is still there. Mrs. May Harvey, so hello to her. So, you know, we go there. And in terms of the things to be concerned of and to watch out for, I actually devoted a chapter in my book, the fourth chapter, which I call the elephant in the room, because there is concern about most people when you discuss these relationships about whether or not you're going to be scammed. That's a particular fear I know from the Black American side. That may be the side from the Caribbean African as well, but also know a particular concern speaking with people from the Caribbean and African side that they may not, some are from America, for instance, Black American may not adapt to the culture. But in terms of being concerned about being scammed, my suggestions are, again, the same. You learn as much as you can about your partner's culture. You ask them questions. You observe and you take your time. Nothing is foolproof. My ultimate advice is, are there risks? Yes, there are. There are risks. But to me, risks are inherent in relationships because you never know if any relationship is going to work. You don't know if someone wants you for your body. You don't know if someone wants you for your money. You never know if someone's feelings towards you are genuine until you go into the relationship. It's part of the inherent risk in life and love. There is no reward without risk. So I tell people to be aware, tell people to do their research, have their discussions and watch. But in the end, you can find love. I have, and so have many other couples.
Well, Dr. Eccles, I must tell you, this sounds like it will make a wonderful TV series. So who knows, we might need to have a further discussion. So thank you for coming on the next chapter. Pardon?
Thank you
Go
for
right
having
ahead.
me. I said that may be in the works. You never know. It's something that both myself and my wife we do right together. So
Well, wonderful. If that is, be sure to share with us as well. It would make for interesting viewing. But your book, I'm sure, will make for interesting reading. Where can we find it?
okay, the book is actually it's been out for 2 years. It is available on Amazon in both paperback and ebook. I'm actually doing an update to the book. So that should be out, Lord willing, in the next week or two. That would be in also paperback, ebook, and also hardcover. So that one is going to have additional interviews and resources. So it's available on Amazon. That's where you could find it. African diasporan relationships, holding the book up. So check it out. Definitely would appreciate whatever support I could get.
Dr. Mark Eccles, author of African Diasporan Relationships. I'm sure you're as intrigued by that book as I am, so make sure you get your copy. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to have a break right now and come on back. The Eyes Have It. That's next. All right, the eyes have it. It's time for you to identify someone by their eyes. Now, here is your first clue. He was a finalist in several competitions over the years, including the Richard Stout Teen Talent Competition, the Junior Monarch Competition, Party Monarch Competition, Soca Royale, the International Bashment Soca Competition, and the International Soca Monarch. Just a few. I think I said that one already. So he's been a part of many competitions. I think, you know, that's the easy thing we can go by. Look deep into those eyes. The question is, can you tell whose eyes these are? We're going to give you a chance to call us up a little bit later, but do a little consulting and look into those eyes and see if you know who we're talking about. It's pretty interesting. This should be really easy for you guys because I think going through COVID, we had to identify people by their eyes. All of a sudden, you couldn't see faces. It was all eyes. So we should have gotten accustomed to this by now. All right? So make sure you get close to your telephone lines so that we can make sure that you get that prize if you can identify who it is. Hey, coming up, we have Doc Talk with Dr. John Barker. He's a consultant gynecologist, and today we are looking at postmenopause and what women can expect at that time. I know there's not much discussion going on about it openly, but we certainly must get to these discussions. So let's say a special good morning to Dr. John Barker, who is here with us for today's presentation of Doc Talk as we look at women's health. Good morning, doctor, and welcome. Always great to have you with us. And today we're looking at postmenopausal bleeding, which, you know, is a very heavy topic to discuss, but there are many women who are not sure what's happening because usually you're told, you know, once you stop bleeding up to one point, then after that it's menopause. So what's happening again?
All right. Postmenopausal bleeding shouldn't be taken lightly. Usually the definition is bleeding. Well, the definition of menopause is whereby your periods have stopped for at least a year, and the average age of menopause is roughly 51. So any female who has any bleeding after this year, that is considered abnormal. Sometimes the lady might be on HRT, so it all depends on which HRT they're on. If they're on the continuous combine, whereby you don't get a period, then if you bleed on that, that's abnormal. And then the other type of HRT is the one whereby you might get a period. If you have irregular bleeding in between that, that is also abnormal as well. The reason being is that 5 to 10% of these patients will have a cancer because 90% of the cancers would present with bleeding. So that's the major importance or the take-home message.
Dr. Barker, what's HRT? You said 90% of these women might be on HRT?
So, right. So in terms of HRT is hormone replacement therapy. So there are two types. One is the continuous combine, where you take a pill every day, and then as a result, you don't get a period. And the other one is whereby the patients will get a period. Now, in relation to the bleeding, 90% of the bleeding is due to a normal cause, like fibroids, benign cause. However, 10% of these patients will have a cancer, up to 10%, but the importance is that 90% of cancers, which would be the cause for the actual bleeding, will present with bleeding.
All right. So you mentioned some of the causes, but I just want to double back for a bit to the hormone replacement therapy. At what point do you decide that someone needs hormone replacement therapy? And does every woman who has gone through or is going through menopause a candidate for hormone replacement therapy? And what does it do?
Right. So essentially, if you're menopausal, you may be symptomatic or asymptomatic. If you are symptomatic, in relation to the discussion that you would have with your GP or your gynecologist, is if you would want to go on hormone replacement therapy, which is medication, or non-hormonal treatment. Non-hormonal treatment would be like decreasing, it would be lifestyle changes, like decreasing caffeine on your diet and exercise, so you'll be able to cope with things. However, if you want HRT, usually we would commence you on HRT. That can be continued for up to 5 years or more, depending on the patient's symptoms. But everybody is an individual, so you might have to tailor their management to their needs as well.
So let's delve into management. You know, we might not be able to cover everything that might be happening with a woman post-menopause, but certainly what are some of the areas of management that are most commonly used?
Right. So if a patient comes in with bleeding and stuff, so essentially what we take is a comprehensive history, which would be in terms of the age, in terms of if it is frank bleeding in relation to if it's a discharge, or if they have any pain or weight loss. Once we have taken a comprehensive history, we would then do a speculum examination to look at the vagina and the neck of the womb, which is the cervix, to see if you have any local lesions. After that, we will do an ultrasound scan, which is a transvaginal ultrasound scan. And this has the greatest sensitivity because there are two ways to do the scan, either abdominally or in the vagina, but the vagina has the best sensitivity. And what we look at is the thickness of the lining of the womb, its uniformity, or if we have abnormalities in the actual ultrasound scan. Now, in relation to anything else, once we find an abnormality, we would then investigate it. As long as the lining is thickened, the patient would need, depending, endometrial biopsy, which is a papal biopsy, or they would need a hysteroscopic surgery, which is essentially putting in a camera into the womb itself. Depending on the criteria that you use, it can be between 3 to 5 millimeters, and that's based on if you're on HRT. So if you are on HRT, then the cutoff is 4 that we use. If you are not on HRT, sorry, but if you are on HRT, depending, the cutoff will be 5 millimeters. However, if we think that you have any abnormalities, we would actually put a camera in to see if you have any benign causes, which would be like polyps or fibroids. And sometimes we can remove these in the office with you being awake. So you don't necessarily have to be put out or sedated to get these procedures done.
So the general advice, what I've gotten from you is, as long as you're seeing postmenopausal bleeding, you definitely should consult your gynecologist because it's not normal. So let's talk next steps so people understand clearly what they should do.
Right. So if you get bleeding, you see your GP or your gynecologist. Once you get the scan, and if the scan is abnormal, then what you need is a biopsy. Now, if you get, as a minimum standard, is an endometrial biopsy. In terms of gold standard, would be a hysteroscopy, meaning putting a camera in the womb and taking a directed biopsy. However, if you have any local pathology, which is like polyps or fibroids, these can be removed in the office at the same time, or depending on the size, then you may be put to sleep or sedated. But over 95 patients can have these procedures with you awake. So in terms of gold standard, it'll be done as an outpatient, either in the office setting, but not in theater. So that will be reserved for the hard cases. Now, if the histology or the tissue comes back abnormal in about 10% of cases, then in terms of cancer, because you can have cancer or you can have precancerous lesions. So if you have precancerous lesions, which should be like endometrial hyperplasia, which is essentially the lining of the womb on steroids. Normals, which is simple hyperplasia, can be treated with Mirena coil, which is the gold standard, and then repeat biopsies in 6 months to make sure that that is not in. If the histology is hyperplasia with abnormalities, what we call atypia, then the patient will be counseled for a total abdominal hysterectomy or a laparoscopic hysterectomy. And most of the time, these patients would be obese. So, in relation to gold standard, would be a laparoscopic hysterectomy. If worst case scenario, it is cancer, then these patients should be managed in the context of a multidisciplinary team. And depending on the severity or the degree of the tumor, then they might need a hysterectomy and lymph node sampling. And it all depends on how early we catch the disease. If it is mild early disease in terms of cancer, your survival rate is over 95% in 5 years. But in relation to outcomes, because endometrial cancer, early endometrial cancer is treatable, if it is late, if you get a late stage, then they actually have the worst prognosis out of most of the gynecological tumors. So the take-home message is to get investigated earlier in terms of seeing your doctor, and usually in terms of time frames. Um, Usually, in terms of the template, would be to be seen within 2 weeks by the specialist, and then in relation to planning a treatment would be usually by 31 days, and that's overseas in terms of the stipulations for the timeline for treatment. So the take-home message would be: if you have any bleeding, discharge, anything like that, postmenopause, is to see your doctor or a GP.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Barker. Always informative, always leaving us with lots of food for thought. Definitely good on that take-home message for today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
That has been Doc Talk. Of course, today we were looking at postmenopausal bleeding, and we most certainly hope that you take to heart all that Dr. Barker told you about taking care of yourselves.
morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're back with our segment, Let's Talk HR, with the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados. And today we're looking at something very interesting. Last time we talked about AI. We're kind of merging things today as we look at unleashing organizational innovation with a skills-based approach. What does that mean, and how does it impact what we do every day, and can it truly be implemented successfully here in Barbados and the Caribbean? To join in the discussion, we have President of HERMAB, Nicholas Roberts, joining us. And this morning, he's brought along Dr. Rochelle Haynes, CEO of Crowd Potential Consulting and Head of Research at the Association for the Future of Work. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome. Good to have you with us. So let's start at the very beginning. We have to work from the ground up to make sure everybody's in step with what we're talking about. What's the skills-based approach, and how does it differ from what is typically used in Barbadian and Caribbean organizations?
Thank you, Tisha. So the skills-based approach is compared to the job-based approach. And the job-based approach is what we would call the traditional approach, which is basically you enter an organization, you work within a particular discipline, let's say, for example, accounting, and you work your way up the career ladder and you continue within that field up the career ladder. The skills-based organization is counter to that. And what that says is you may come in the organization within an accounting role, but you are also, the organization looks to utilize the full breadth of your skills, not just your professional discipline, but also, let's say, other hard and softer skills that you may possess. And what it does is put you on projects right across the organization with different departments, persons from different departments, in order to complete certain tasks and challenges. So whereas the job-based organization, you stay within one department and you move up the career ladder, the skills-based approach is really about providing more interesting work by allowing you to work right across the organization and utilize your full breadth of skills.
Nicholas, why is this approach needed at a time like this? And how do we know that it will work in organizations here in Barbados and across the wider Caribbean?
It's needed because it pushes flexibility within organizations. I think Rochelle touched on a very pertinent point in terms of where organizations stand right now. Things can be very linear in the approach to how skills are utilized or people are utilized within organizations. So she used the example of someone maybe trained as an accountant or have a background with finance or numbers, and they stay with that career track throughout their entire career path. With the skills-based approach, it means that you're pulling from all of these skills and the knowledge and attributes that a person may have to ensure that they not only thrive and prosper within the organization, but you push the organization forward. So it's the melding of the two approaches, taking people's skill sets from a holistic approach and not just looking at them from them having one set of skills or attributes, and then looking to see how it is that they can be used across the organization. And this pushes creativity and innovation within organizations, and this sees organizations moving into the 21st century, as opposed to, as Rochelle so rightly mentioned, you come into an organization and you work within one track for your entire career path or career span, or not even within an organization alone. If it is that you go through different organizations throughout the span of your career, you're able to then use your skill sets in many different areas. So yes, you may be a trained accountant, but you may have picked up some skills along the way in terms of people management or in terms of just general management, that you can move into another position that it may not necessarily be an accountant or finance or numbers-based profession.
Now, I'm going to stay with you for a moment, Nicholas, on this. How will organizations be able to truly access what's in there with their employees? Because this is about employees opening up as well and sharing what they know and being willing to maybe step out into different areas. So how can HR professionals and organizations really tap into employees wanting to share at a time where we're hearing so many new terms of people quitting and not necessarily giving their all in organizations based on dissatisfaction?
Mm-hmm. I think what is very important within organizations is you have to start from the beginning. If you start wrong, you're going to end wrong. So it all comes down to the type of talent that you bring into your organization. Outside of that, how is it that we are training our young people within the educational system, and not only within the educational system, how are we socializing them? How are we preparing them for a mindset that they can do anything within the world of work, or they can do anything that they put their minds to? Or are we telling them, oh, you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, a bank manager, and putting in their minds that there's only one set of skills or only one set of jobs that are important or are deemed beneficial to society? So we need to be taking a holistic and 360-degree approach to the way that we develop our people, both young and mature, in terms of how it is that they progress. Because you could be a mature person and you could be working within a career path for your entire lifetime, but you may want to move into another field later on in your career. So once HR practitioners, and not only HR practitioners, people leaders and managers within organizations, they need to be having those conversations with their people within the organization to see where their interests lie. And I think that is why quitting is such a big thing now. There's a disconnect between the communication happening between the organization and the people. And not only when it comes to work, people obviously bring what is happening in their personal lives into the workplace. So sometimes it may be something may be going on within your personal life that is affecting the way that you approach your work. Or you may just be doing a job that you're tired of doing, or you've been, you're not mentally stimulated anymore. There are varying factors, but I think it comes down to communication. You need to understand where the person lies, where their interest lies, because people are not stagnant. When you come into an organization, you may have wants to have goals or objectives, and then as things change, you may want to go into another career field or another career path, or do something else within the organization. So I think having those conversations to see what is going on with people, both on a personal and professional level, to see how it is that you can help them grow and progress wherever they may at on the continuum within their career trajectory.
This is true. Totally agree with all that you've said. In the last few years, we've heard about many companies doing initiatives or undertaking initiatives like skills audits and things of that nature. So, Dr. Haynes, tell us, for companies who might want to start, I know Nicholas said if you start wrong, you end wrong, and it really should start with your recruitment process. How do companies start to be able to if they want to pursue this skills-based approach to unleashing innovation in their organizations? Where do they start?
The existing research that's out there already that shows that about 70, and this is not just worldwide, but this is in the Caribbean as well, shows about 70% of the people in your organization are already thinking of leaving that company within 12 months. Within the Caribbean context, where we don't have a lot of room for, let's say, upward mobility because of the amount of firms and opportunities in one firm and the size of our island, usually what that results in is a lot of brain drain for us in Barbados, where talent are lacking opportunities here. Young talent they're lacking interest in the work. What they tend to do is to look for that work overseas. So if it is that we want to, try to approach a skills-based approach and provide more interesting work, one of the things we have to do is remember that it's an evolutionary process and not a revolutionary process. And what I mean by that is that you have to start small and start with one thing at a time, test that, learn from it, and then try to make that more systemic. So if you want to start with your recruitment system, I very much agree with Nicholas where he said, and where you mentioned just now, the first thing you have to do is to look at the job roles that you currently have and the needs for the organization in the future, and start with a skills audit and a job audit and see what it is that those new roles might require and also what your current roles require. And that also helps you to look for the particular skills match. But the other thing with that as well is to consider both hard and soft skills, and think about how in your interviewing process and your other selection methods, how you are actually making sure that those persons that you are hiring meet that criteria. So I would say start with one practice, maybe start internally before you if you want to test it already with the people that you have in your organization, perhaps start with one element of your organization. Pick a challenge that's difficult to solve and begin talking to your people through your performance management and appraisal process. Try to find out what they're interested in and the other skills they have beyond their job. A good example is we have a lot of young people in our organizations who are, let's say they come into a job as an accountant, but in their spare time, they're also a social media influencer. How might you be able to leverage those skills to solve problems within your organization? So I think start with the people you have. Start with one particular practice in your organization or one particular challenge. Test that and learn from it, and then see how you can roll it out on a larger scale.
Nicholas, are there any examples of this particular approach at work here in Barbados, in the Caribbean, in the wider international community that we can look at? We've been hearing a lot about utilizing soft skills, most certainly a whole lot more. But this sounds to me like this is the direction we're going in when we are looking at what people bring to the table, as you mentioned, holistically, rather than concentrating a whole lot on qualifications, where you might have people coming into an organization who, yes, are qualified in a particular area, but we know for specialized areas, experiential knowledge is a lot of the times what people truly need to be able to effectively do their jobs.
I think you will see specifically within professional services firms, so for instance, like the PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Ernst & Young, the Deloitte, because they're impacted by their global organizations that are based in the United States, Europe, and those type of organizations. There's a lot of knowledge, experience, and thought leadership when it comes to HR that is then transitioned within the Caribbean, and that is a good thing about those firms operating within the Caribbean. On a global scale, more so brands like Kellogg's and as well as Unilever have been using it. So I think a few weeks ago I read an article about Kellogg's. They're moving away from looking for their employees having necessarily certificates or qualifications, and once again looking towards skills. Unilever as well, they're looking at Unilever is known for in terms of beauty products and toiletries, and Kellogg's is known for cereals. So two totally different industries and brands, but they're doing this revolutionary thing where they're not necessarily looking for people. You have to have a degree in X area and X amount of years of experience, but they're looking to see how it is that you have the skills and the knowledge and the competencies and the abilities to do various jobs within the organization. Because when it is that we typecast people, then we typecast the organization, and it makes things very linear within the world of work. So those are some of the brands and some of the organizations, based on the research and my knowledge that I have seen, that have been moving towards this approach.
So what are some of the challenges that organizations might experience, Dr. Haynes, in working towards transitioning to maybe a skills-based approach in terms of how they interact or engage with their employees?
One of the biggest challenges is the legacy mindset. First, convincing persons to switch and convincing persons that there is another way to organize work. So where we're able to break down those sorts of mindsets, perhaps by producing a case study with a small practice and proving that it works, then that would help as well. But another issue as well is for organizations who have pursued it when they first started is managing the different work arrangements. So if you are now working not departmentally, but now working on a project basis, then managers also have to learn to manage in that sort of network organization. And the other thing as well is that digital transformation really supports the skills-based process. So if you're going to promote this and you want to be leveraging tools like AI, then you have to make sure that your organization is ready to do that and that you're doing it responsibly, and that you can also protect data while doing that. The final thing I would say, not the last, but the final thing with regards to the challenges, is also making sure that you're not over-indexing on those skills as well. When you're starting to look for and identify skills within your organization, you have to have a clear criteria for identifying those skills, so you don't end up in the case of duplicating, producing, let's say, a database of employees with skills, and a lot of those skills are actually the same thing. So you have to be very clear on what's the criteria for labeling a particular skill, and then how also do you determine which employee is better capable in that area as well.
All right, I want to thank you both for coming in and sharing with us. And Dr. Haynes, you brought up AI at the right time, that intersect between technology and what we do. You guys have mentioned, and I believe talent acquisition is where these organizations who want to move to this skills-based approach, that's where they need to start. So where the two intersect is going to be very, very interesting to see how companies are able to navigate that. Nicholas, final word for you.
So once again, we need to revolutionize the way of work within the Caribbean. As I've been saying for the last few weeks and months, if we don't, we will be left behind. So I just think that this is another arsenal in the HR artillery for organizations to look at to see how it is that they can re-engender the way that we do work within the Caribbean region, just so that we can catch up to what is happening and we won't be left behind by the world at large.
Nicholas Roberts, president of HERMAB, and Dr. Rochelle Haynes, CEO of Crowd Potential Consulting and head of research at the Association for the Future of Work. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Lots for us to think about as we go into our work day today. I certainly will be thinking. We're going to take a break and come on back. Stay with us. We'll be telling you about the Mr. Executive Initiative, and the eyes have it, or do they? That's next.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right, so remember, we're going to come back at you with the eyes have it. We gave you the very first clue, and I'm hoping that you have already looked deep into those eyes that we showed you, and you are thinking about who that person is. The clue we gave you was he was a finalist in several competitions over the years, including the Richard Stout Teen Talent Competition, the Junior Monarch Competition, the Party Monarch Competition, the Soca Royale, and the International Bashment Soca Competition, to name a few, which means there are more. Can you tell whose eyes these are? This is not as simple as I thought it would be. I thought COVID prepared me for identifying all manner of eyes. Apparently, this is not so. But if you know, you should call us up. We're going to give you an opportunity shortly to come on in and try to share who you think these eyes belong to. All right. So think about it and delve in, think a little bit more and look at those eyes and get back to us. But there's a wonderful initiative that is coming up. It started a few years ago as the brainchild of a teacher who wanted to see his students be able to thrive in different environments and be more comfortable moving into the world of work. And he is Winston Cumberbatch. He's founder and coordinator of the Mr. Executive Challenge. I know he taught at the St. Leonard's Boys School for many, many years. And he has brought along a few of the finalists who are going to be a part of the Mr. Executive Challenge. It has now moved away from the St. Leonard's Boys School, I believe, where it started. So now we have a student from Ellerslie, one from Lodge, one from Graydon Sealy Secondary School, one from St. Leonard's Boys, and one from the Allen School, who will be appearing with us this morning. Good morning to you, Mr. Cumberbatch, and the finalists of the Mr. Executive Challenge. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, Tisha.
Good morning. I certainly have never been more excited to see our screen so packed. I love it. So lay the groundwork for us, Mr. Cumberbatch. Tell us all about your reasoning behind the executive challenge.
Well, as you rightly said, teacher, having taught at the boys' school now for several years, 43 years, now retired, I would have seen, the challenges that our young men face, all right, society. There was a time when they said that men were in crisis. I don't know if that's still the case, but the truth is that I thought that we needed to get something in place for young men to challenge them, to see themselves as valuable citizens, to consider the idea of entrepreneurship, as well as to become gentlemen, because the challenge is really called the Mr. Executive Senior Boys Business and Gentleman's Challenge. All right. So that catapulted me into developing this in 2017. We had another session last year, 2022. But it caught the attention of several individuals, including the Ministry of Education. The chief herself requested that it become an inter-school challenge. And that's why this year, for the first time, we are now having the inter-school Mr. Executive Challenge, which will see the first Mr. Executive Barbados being crowned.
Well, that's wonderful. Before we move on to meeting the boys, you had 26 students from Alene School, Ellerslie, Graydon Sealy, Lodge, and St. Leonard's participating in the prelim round. What was involved in that initial round to be able to prep them to this stage?
All right, well, one of the main things, though, which was introduced last year, we didn't have it in the first year, was the $20 challenge. Because it's a business challenge, they wanted something that was actually practical, all right? Not just theory. So through the Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation, we form a partnership, and therefore all the 26 boys would have engaged in training to develop businesses, and they actually grouped together and formed, I think it was 5 or so businesses, took that to market, and that became one of the criteria, along with a dress inspection at school and a speech on a particular topic. So from that, the top student from each school advanced to the final, which is now going on, preparing for.
All right, let's see if we can check in with the boys. I see Dante Peters is here. He's from Ellerslie School. To Shane Dawson from the Lodge School. We also have Christian Nicholas from Graydon Sealy Secondary School, and Micah Tate from St. Leonard's Boys School, as well as Andre Lashley Coppin from the Alene School. I'm really excited to meet you guys, and you truly are looking very executive this morning, which is, a great positive. So Dante, tell me about what piqued your interest and why you decided to enter the competition.
Good morning. Well, in coming in this competition, I thought, this competition, it would teach, some leadership skills. It would boost my confidence. And, in coming in this competition, I was blinding, seeing what was ahead. So basically, I was timid. I was timid in coming in the competition. I was timid. I wasn't sure what was ahead in the competition. And, several persons, they saw something in me, and eventually, I gave in and I joined the competition. And from our first session, our first day in this competition, I told myself something about this. It has something in the future for me. So, going on after class, after course, I built confidence. I told myself, this is good for my leadership skills. And, I wasn't even sure about getting in, into the finals. I was just here to take in knowledge and what's not. But I think the competition is good for young men. As I said, learning leadership skills as one of the main points.
Say that. To Shane Dawson, tell me how you feel about making it to the finals of this competition.
Okay, for starters, I was not looking forward to making it to the finals, but then I got a call from Mr. Mason saying I need to come to the ceremony, and when I got there, I was shocked to realize that I was one of the finalists. And now there's a lot of tasks that's supposed to be done at hand, but in all, it's a very good competition. The leadership, the experience is all great. I highly recommend it. More young men should get involved. I would assume that later on in the future, hopefully more schools can get involved so this can be open to a lot of people.
That sounds great. Christian, Mr. Nicholas, tell me what has been the best part about the competition so far?
I think the best part about this competition was the mentorship that was provided by the competition. For example, the business mentorship, and there's leadership mentorship, all sorts of mentorship and courses we have to go through that boost leadership skills, help teach us confidence and marketing skills as well. I think the knowledge gained from this competition was the best thing.
That's excellent. Micah, your thoughts on the $20 challenge that's a part of the competition?
Good morning, and good morning, Barbados.
Good morning.
My thoughts on the challenge, it was very exciting, and it was a challenge as it was a challenge itself. My part of the $20 challenge, I and other in the competition going on to the finals with me was in my group. Dante Peters, Shane Dawson, former runner-up Dimitri Belgrave, and
one other person.
Yeah, one other person, but the name is not coming to me right now. I'm sorry, it's that person.
That's okay.
But we went through many things, testings, as the many said before. We had a lot of training coming up to this competition, and one of the training taught us how to make a business out of nothing, basically. That we can make a business out of trees, we can make a business out of rubber, we can make a business out of anything. And so in having a meeting with our group, we decided on making soaps, and our soaps are healthy soaps, natural soaps, and scented soaps. And I'm not sure if anyone saw, but we had a day that we went out on at Sky Mall, and all the groups published their business and pushed their business. And the $20 challenge, it was a very time-consuming aspect of this challenge, but it was very encouraging, very helpful, because now going into the world, we learned many to speak in public, speak on the spot. And I remember it had an interview time when the CBC came to Sky Mall, and we were not looking for interviews, but they came, and I really commend to Shane Dawson, which she was the CEO of our business, and he took up the stand and he spoke, and I know that wouldn't have been easy, but it just built confidence and it pushed a lot of us, and it was a good experience.
It's excellent. I can see that you truly enjoyed it, just based on what you're saying, and I see how you speak of your colleagues with a measure of admiration. And last but certainly not least, Andre Lashley Coppin, congratulations on being a finalist as well. How would you say that being a part of this competition has changed your approach generally to how you look at yourself? The way you dress, how you approach people, how you speak, what you do.
Good morning, Ms. Sainz, and thank you for the compliment. Good morning, Barbados as well. And I would say that the competition has molded me in a positive way. It has made me more business as a business individual, and I find myself looking to dress more in the button-up shirt and the tie. And I would say even with the classes that we would have had in the beginning at the University of the West Indies, the challenge in of itself that the others would have mentioned, would have had the leadership, we've also had the mentoring as well. So each aspect when we were in the beginning stages, being mentored by persons such as Mr. Richard Blades and Mr. Troy Holder. Those persons would have molded us into the individuals that we are and teaching us how to pitch a business idea and how also to be business individuals as well. As you will see on finals night, September the 3rd, the leading up, the results that we would have all gained from the experience. So personally, it would have been somewhat of a positive and eye-opening experience in that some things have changed, and I see myself more as a business individual than a casual citizen.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much, and I really can go on talking with you all morning long. It really warms my heart to see young men at this place, Mr. Cumberbatch, and you know why? For more reasons than one, particularly because 3 of my nephews have passed through your hands at St. Leonard's Boys School, and you know I have 10 nephews to run with, and I am running with them all the way. You guys are a joy to talk to this morning. Continue on this trajectory. Don't look back. Do you hear me? Good stuff. I'm very proud of the work that you're doing. And this is great stuff, Mr. Cumberbatch. Coming up on September 3rd, 6:30 at the St. Leonard's Boys Auditorium, Boys School Auditorium, is where we can see these young men in action.
Yes, and I would like to be able to highlight to that. Leading up to that, there are 2 things that they're supposed to do now. One is a day at the office where they're working for a day at the Old Scholar Mentor, and also a community leadership project, right, which each of them have identified. And they will be moving into the community and doing some positive things. For example, someone will be, Andrea Laffy Coppin will be doing installing of bus stop garbage disposals. Dante Peters, food hamper distribution and play park beautification. That's in St. Stephen's Hill, Black Rock. Andres is in Baby's Lane. Christian Nicholas, he's doing a community cleanup in King Street. Shane Dawson, he's doing a beach cleanup at the Bath Beach. And Micah is doing a healthy nutrition distribution at Dickens. And so you see, it's a very broad program in covering a lot of areas. And on the finals night, well, you can expect to see these guys engaging in stuff like the day at the office, sorry, not the day at the office, the date where the gentleman part comes out, where they're supposed to bring a lady to a restaurant. In other words, the platform will be set like a restaurant with real food, real waiters, and they must show real chivalry, table etiquette, all of that. They even have to do an interview on stage, a real job interview, and also do a project pitch as a CEO. So this is why this program is catching such attention.
All right. I want to thank you so much. Please don't go anywhere. Stay right there, but we're going to have to wrap up the show for today. We want to thank you so much for sharing with us. Remember, the competition comes off September 3rd, 6:30. You definitely will hear more from us before we get there about it. So keep on viewing. On behalf of the entire crew, I want to thank you for sharing with us today. Remember to wear your smiles and have a good one. Come on back tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you.